Hey everybody, we haven't posted to this feed in a while because as you may know, we have transitioned away from the Tiny Disc podcast, and right now we've started actually a new podcast on another feed. It's called Tadaima, a Terrace House Podcast. And so we are posting the first 3 episodes from our new show here to this feed just to help you guys kind of on board and come with us to the next show we're doing. Again, that's called Tadaima, a Terrace House Podcast. It's spelled Tadaima. And so trust me, I had to practice that a couple times. But anyways, we appreciate you guys, and we're looking forward to you joining us on our next venture here. And for those that are interested, and for those that are not interested, we thank you very much for all of your support for the Tiny Disc podcast. And we will see you on the other side. Thanks so much.
Hello everybody, welcome to Tadaima, a Terrace House Podcast, your weekly companion to your favorite show on Netflix. I'm Robert Scarpanito, and I'm joined here by Daily Wilhelm,
調子はどう?私はデイリーです
Jack Cepeda,
Irashaimasa. Hey everybody.
and Colin Sparling.
Hi, I live and die by coffee. That's all I am is coffee. I'm made of coffee.
You know, the human body is 70% coffee.
Certainly mine is.
I think you'd be dead.
I'm assuming that you're probably on your second coffee by now, right, Colin?
At least at my first. I'm doing my first.
Yikes.
Already.
That's gross. So on today's episode of Tadaima, we're going to be doing a deep dive on the hosts, on the 6 panelists that intercut the episode and give us their amazing thoughts on boobs. A lot of the time, really, like there's a lot of that.
I mean, you're not lying.
But yeah,
sometimes
over and
a
over
little
again.
uncomfortable, but simultaneously I think it's important information, guys.
yeah, just like the truth, it spills out.
Central to the storyline of Terrace House.
So yeah, we're gonna do a deep dive on them. If you don't know, they're actually pretty famous people in Japan who have done things beforehand. Like this isn't their debut by any means. And Jack and Colin have just done amazing amounts of research, and they're going to elucidate
so much.
elucidate all
peer-reviewed,
of that
empirical,
information to us. So I'm gonna turn it over to you two. Fight for the mic.
All right. Do you want to go first, Jack?
No, I want you to go first.
You want me to go first?
Yep.
Okay. So after doing absurd amounts of research, as in IMDb pages,
Absurd.
so I looked into first off Babazono, who is the host that sits all the way to your left. She's usually very stylish. There's been quite a few times where she wears like a lot of crew necks from like American universities. She was rocking an Ohio State sweatshirt one day. Shout out to my alma mater. But a lot of people refer to her as, I believe we're talking about it, but like as being very quiet, right? She's like the quiet host. She doesn't talk a whole lot.
Yeah, and she kind of doesn't.
Yeah, and kind of thinking back of with all the Terrace House that I've seen, she definitely does not talk very much. I can't honestly think of a really notable quote from her or anything like that. I mean, can you guys?
Well, I do remember when she speaks, it's usually a pretty good stinger. I just don't remember. Like, it's not memorable, but it's kind of like, oh, you're right, kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember like maybe once or twice where she came in pretty hot with like a sick burn or something. It's just like, oh, zing, that sort of deal. But like going through the list of the stuff that she's acted in before Terrace House, there's a lot of stuff, and the common trend you're going to notice here as we talk about these hosts is it's a lot of stuff that's exclusive to Japan that you're not, like, no one really outside of Japan is going to know, unless you're like VPNing over there or whatever. And the funny thing is too is there's just not a whole lot on Google about any of these shows either. So I think that just kind of comes with the territory. But to name a couple, there's one called Good Partner, The Invisible Lawyer, and I'm really curious if that's actually about an invisible lawyer.
Is she
I would watch this. I would watch this.
Yeah. I wouldn't turn it off immediately.
Yeah, and then Trouble Is My Business Too. Don't know if there's a 1.
I love the names of Japanese media.
Yeah.
They have a true talent. And if something doesn't have Doki Doki in it, my question is why?
Actually, as soon as you said that, I looked at one called Soda Doka ni Iko.
There you go.
Yeah. But then one of the common trends I found on some of these IMDb pages is a show called Gakincho Rock. I don't know if you've found that at all, Jack, but I've noticed that at least Babazono and Tokui, who is the male host, I believe, just right of Babazono, if I remember correctly. Is that
sitting
right,
on the
guys?
floor? Yeah, sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
They were in that show together. Yeah. So I'm guessing that had a hand in whether or not they got on the show together, or on Terrace House rather. But did you see that show in any of the credits for you, Jack?
No, I mean, I was
Okay.
Yeah, I was focusing just very secondarily on the shows they were in and stuff. So let me ask you, do you have anything like in terms of vital statistics on Babazono? Like, is she the middle in age of the females on the panel? That's just how I perceive her in my head, but I don't know if that's true or not.
She definitely like looks a little bit younger than a couple of the people on there. I would say saying like middle aged of the group is a pretty fair statement.
Though I can't sit there and be like, yeah, she has, this is a Babazono moment. You know, I just think she's very kind of measured and rational and reasoned in her responses and in her analysis of what's going on. And she's not very outspoken, but she adds a lot. Her laughter and her smile kind of add a lot to the comedy. Like, I feel like when she's laughing and smiling, like I'm laughing and I'm smiling too.
Yeah. She definitely like outwardly enjoys herself, and that definitely adds to it. There's something to be said about that. But kind of going into Tokui stuff. Tokui is a pretty well-known for comedy in Japan, and again, there's not a whole lot of stuff that we were gonna know outside of Japan, other than Terrace House. But some of my favorites that I've read through is it's not that I can't get married, I just don't do it.
Is that like a stand-up special? Because it sounds like him.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a TV miniseries.
It's funny. Okay.
Yeah. And Impossible Love, and then obviously another Gakincho Rock, and then there's another one called YYY, but it's like WAI.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was a TV series. But for the most part, just like a lot more exclusive stuff from Japan. Tokui is definitely like an older guy in the group. He was born in 1975, so that makes him 43 years old. Yep. But he's also he's a pretty big pop culture icon. He even makes references during the commentary in the show where they're like, oh yeah, there's like billboards of him, or people stop him in the street. So he's obviously explosively popular in Japan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering if he had any writing credits, because he does those long drawn out, and then they would do this, and then they would look at each other.
Yeah, seriously.
And then tears would well up in their eyes.
He's got some improv, either that, or writer experience. He's got some sort of experience there that allows him to just throw that stuff out there. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I'd figure
For
that
me,
comes maybe
go ahead.
from his comedy background, because there's a lot of comedians that were more than half of your stand-up routine is telling a story. Mm-hmm. Right. And he kind of evokes that same kind of talent where even though he's playing with 2 or 3 characters in a scene, you can still tell when he's playing a different character, when the way he talks, the way he moves, the way he emotes.
Yeah, for sure.
His storytelling is definitely the biggest value add, I think, that he brings to the whole experience in the group. I don't know where he gets this imagination, paint these images. So the part where he's talking about Noah and Amayu, that storyline was hilarious. That situation where he's look at the clock, and then it'll paint down and Noah's tied up and it's 3 a.m. That whole thing, right?
Yeah,
I was almost on the verge of tears, laughing at how funny that scenario was. But I also love where he'll sometimes get embarrassed. He'll get called out by the females on the panel too, and he'll be like, yeah, I guess I am a little too worried about this 22-year-old girl's love life, and I'm 43 or whatever. He's like, wow, is that really the kind of guy I am? He questions himself. It's really funny.
And I love just how like outspoken he is, but he's just really honest. Between, I believe, him, you, and Yama, they're probably the most vocal out of the group, I would have to say. And I often think that Tokui comes across as a little bit of the ringleader. I feel like he's kind of leading the commentary a lot of the times. Most of the time when they come back to the commentators, I'm expecting him to be leading the discussion.
Interesting. He tends to have one of the first reactions. I mean, you'll see him like pulling out his earbuds, like, "Oh, I can't believe that happened." You know, I never thought of it that way though, in terms of like a hierarchy. Like, who is the leader of the panel? I kind of always thought of them kind of like flat in a way.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't say like he's the clear-cut leader, but I feel like he does lead quite a few of the discussions when they do cut to the hosts.
Interesting.
Yeah. If we're talking about leading, I think it's you and Tokui that lead the most, I guess, in depth. Like actual analysis, armchair analysis of the people. But it's kind of nice that even though they get analytical, they can still play ball very well. Like once Yama starts like rolling the ball about making jokes, those two are at bat and they always score a home run.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm going to talk about it later on the Yama channel. So Jack, do you want to talk a little bit about the people?
Yes. And so I was taking over, kind of doing research on Tori-chan, one of my favorite members of the panel. And so her name is, and I'm going, just like full disclosure here, I'm going to butcher pretty much every Japanese pronunciation here. So prepare your ears for that. So
you're going to do
Reina Trendle, or Tori-chan, is a fashion model. She sits on the central couch there, kind of to the right of you. And did we skip over you?
Well, I was just on it to you. I was going to come back to her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so should I go and keep discussing Trendle, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. So, and so she's basically known as like a model, an actress, a torrento in Japanese, which is basically someone who is a talent, and essentially it's someone who's famous for being famous, which I think is interesting. And there are a few people like that, parallels and analogs in American culture, but I feel like it's more prevalent in Japanese pop culture anyways, to have people that are just famous just because they're famous. You know, they were in one thing one time and then they expand out, and that's kind of how they're known, just for kind of being on these kind of panels and being on these like kind of cooking variety shows, etc.
So you're saying she's a Ryan Seacrest type?
Kind of, in a way. I mean, because she's so her talent's just so spread out across different things, right? So she's not really like pigeonholed as one thing. So I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So Tori-chan is what I like to call her. That's what they typically call her. But she was born in Vienna, Austria. Her father's German. Her mother's Japanese. She also has a sister named Luna. She was born in 1992, January 23rd. So she's 26 now, living in Tokyo. And she's been active with Terrace House pretty much, I think, from the beginning. She does take some breaks from here and there just for business, and it's kind of like a scheduled thing. It's always funny when Tori-chan isn't there, because that tends to be when the other members of the panel seem to misbehave a little bit more and get a little bit more raunchy. So she's kind of like, she's the youngest female, at least I think she's the youngest female on the panel, and she seems to be the one that people want to behave for the most.
Yeah, they make her out to be like the quote unquote pure one, I guess.
She is.
They're like, oh, we don't want to get, ruin her purity, so to speak.
Right. And she has like, that's what makes it so interesting, right? When she does come up with a reaction or a reflection on the scenario that you don't necessarily expect, right? I think that's pretty interesting, because she does have like a little bit of an evil streak in her. A little bit. It starts to come out here and there. Yeah. But she is like, I guess like her typecast is she's like the innocent, pure, noble woman that don't say anything too gross around her, and she does tend to give side eyes to the guys when they do get a little bit out of line. But again, like I said, she has that little bit of an evil streak in her, and it's always interesting when that comes out. So she's one of my favorite people on the panel, actually.
Yeah, and
I believe one of us posted in our chat some while ago, but she was actually in a movie not that long ago, right? It was like some zombie movie or something.
Yeah, right? She does like mainly horror movies. I don't have any off the like to reference right now, but she has been in a bunch of movies, and some of them are like zombie related. I mean, it's pretty funny. For whatever reason, zombie movies in Japanese schools is basically like its own genre. There's just so many of those, or any kind of a genre where high school kids are shooting themselves or killing each other, or all kinds of stuff like that. Like gun violence in Japanese schools is a movie thing. It's a fantasy. Yeah. Not so much the case in the US. Well, but I mean, yeah.
Just overall in Japanese media, like almost anything happens in a high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much like superheroes but in high school, compulsive gamblers but in high school.
Yeah. And also, I mean, even in their commercials on TV, they will just straight up show high school kids shooting machine guns to sell a cell phone game.
Yep.
It's like a normal thing on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So,
and I just wanted to speak to you mentioning her like she's both innocent but also has an evil streak. Like my favorite moments with her are when she does give the side eye, especially to like Yama or Tokui, because they're getting a little too raunchy, because that's like the perfect mix of like she's scolding them for spoiling the innocent child, but she's also the innocent child. You know, it's like this weird dynamic where it's like, you can't talk about that shit in front of me. You know that, right?
yeah.
You guys are so gross. That's what I meant. It sounded like in English.
I can't remember what season it was, but someone just brought up like the word meat, and then like I don't know, there was like a double entendre there, and she was like starting to turn red and stuff.
It was like if like someone was just saying the word moist a lot.
Oh, something like that. Yeah. To be fair, most people don't like that word. I've calloused my soul to that word, so it doesn't affect me anymore.
I think I said it one time at work, and someone's like, yeah, every time someone says that word, I just think of cake. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that works for me.
Sure.
All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about you.
Yes.
The reason why
you talk about you.
You're talking about me?
You. I'll talk about you.
Wait,
and
who?
Me.
Who?
Let's talk about you and me.
All right, so guys, we can't make that joke for the next year. Okay. We blew it now.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was it. That was the one shot. We blew it.
Who we talking
about? So I wanted to talk about Babazono and Tokui kind of together, since I had that kind of connection in Gakkensho Rock. But I wanted to come back to you because she's one of the she's has an interesting career, and it's reading through it. It's very reminiscent to Paula Abdul to me, because she was like a big singer songwriter in the 80s. She had like a big single as a solo artist called Chotodake. And then in I think 1988 she formed her pop group called Fairchild. Which somewhere in the depths of the internet, we were able to find a music video from that time. And it was,
it's wild.
If you know Vaporwave aesthetic, that's like Vaporwave aesthetic before Vaporwave was the thing. And there's a strange amount of garbage in that music video. And I mean that literally.
Literal garbage.
Yeah, literal trash bags.
Bags.
Yeah. But yeah, and then apparently from there, she's started in a lot of TV shows. Not much for movies, it seems too much. Except for Nobody Knows, which was apparently she got nominated for Best Supporting Actress in 2005 at the Japanese Academy Awards. Yeah, she played an absent mother role. But I think that was like her biggest role she's ever taken. But I think she's mostly known for her music because it seems to take up a lot of the articles and stuff that I've read about her. She didn't actually start starring in movies until about the mid-aughts. Yeah. Before that was on music.
I guess that if you had to say someone was the de facto leader of the panel, I guess you'd have to say it's you, just because she's the first voice you hear for every episode of Terrace House.
That's fair.
She says "Konbanwa." She does the whole spiel at the beginning, describing what the show is, what it's going to be, what we're going to see. And so she is kind of the Leonardo to their Ninja Turtles.
I didn't realize Leonardo was the leader, so
what?
Now I know something new.
You know what? You would have known that had you listened to my Ninja Turtles rap. So, pending.
Episode 21 of the Tiniest Podcast. Check it.
Yeah, just be thankful you weren't there for that.
Please tell me that that's an actual the episode number.
It is, because that was
Oh my gosh, you knew that.
No, because it was the episode we did a drunk cast because we turned 21.
Okay. All right, we might have to revisit that. Anyways, yes, so listen to Ninja Turtle raps daily and you'll understand the hierarchy the tyrannical patriarchy of the Ninja Turtles.
Tyrannical patriarchy.
As compared to you being the tyrannical leader of the hosts on Terrace House.
Who, me? Sorry.
Leonardo,
Yes, you.
the patriarch of the Ninja Turtle clan. That's some Yakuza ass shit right there.
So to throw the ball back to you though, seriously, Daily, like, what are some of your thoughts on you, the woman?
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
couch?
you, not you. You. I love
this is
you. She's great. No, she definitely feels like the leader in that A, she is the first voice that you hear, but B, I feel like whenever anyone's going on a tangent, she is the one that kind of shuts it down or encourages it to go further. People seem to kind of defer to her ruling in a way. But even though she like seems to be kind of more on the side of like she'll allow kind of raunchy things to go, I feel like she's the most balanced take on things in that she's on both sides of the spectrum where she's like wants to protect Tori-chan's like innocence and has that view of like, well, no, I think a girl would be thinking this, but also allowing, you know, Yama and Tokui to be weird. But she does bring in like experience, I think, is part of it. And I think that's a huge part of the value to the hosts on Terrace House because like they have the experience of going through love and friendships and breakups and kind of bringing their own thoughts into that.
Totally. And I think that her and you and Tokui, rather, they are always the ones that at least I find personally, I echo a lot of reactions that I have to things that happen in the show. Like, it's funny when they cut to like the hosts and then use this like kawaii and like just like really into what's happening, and then they cut to like their reactions of like certain events, and like Tokui will jump out of his seat, or you would be like, oh my gosh, she'll like flinch because something just happened like crazy in the show. I definitely feel like they're like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the key for like from the audience, like they echo a lot of our reactions.
They're like the
I
thought
feel like.
leaders.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
To me, Yu is definitely the funniest of all of the females. She definitely is not scared to get raunchy, especially when we're talking about
No, not
soba
at all.
sticks and just having fun and laughing. Like, she's hilarious to me. She doesn't care anymore. Like you said, she brings a ton of life experience to her commentary, and she has kids, and she's kind of been there, done that, and she's kind of over it. And so I really appreciate that. And I also just love her sense of humor too. So I really value, kind of her take on things. Probably the most of all the females, I think.
Yeah, and one thing that I just find really interesting is, I mean, like, because this show has, for the most part, been very, very heterosexual, right? It's very like male-female get together. So it's kind of nice that you have the older female Yu and the older male Tokui, where they both kind of like provide the aspects of like what's a man like in a relationship, what's a woman like in a relationship, because that's a great way to get over that pretty consistent hump of, like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, like they're never going to understand each other. So at least let's have two experienced people that have been on both sides of that coin see what they say on the show.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess we should probably continue on down the couch there. And we already talked about Tori-chan, so we're going to skip over her in the fourth position. We're going to skip all the way to the fifth chair, the rotating fifth chair. It's kind of a famous position within the panel of Terrace House, within the pantheon of the show's history. And so this is a person that's usually sitting on the floor to the right of Tori-chan, if you're looking, and it's typically filled with a young male idol that is popular at the time of the airing of the episodes. And so again, this is someone who doesn't generally talk very much. They're kind of more the quieter seat, if I'm recollecting correctly. And so where I have information is basically from Boys and the Girls Next Door all the way up to Opening New Doors. So this has been occupied by about 4 different idols. For episodes 26 through 98 of Boys and Girls Next Door, it was occupied by Hiromi Tosaka. And then for episodes 1 through 18 of Boys and Girls in the City, it was occupied by Yumu Mochizuki. Gems here. And then,
Doing great. Yeah,
Jack. Hey, man. Hey, give me credit here. And then for episodes 19 through 46, Kentaro, my boy, Kentaro was probably, if I had to rank them, my favorite of the fifth chair people. Kentaro was the bomb. I thought he just brought the most to it. He seemed the less timid, the less shy, and had the best takes. And so for Aloha State, he continued on for episodes 1 through 36. Kentaro, that boy. And then now we're on with episodes 1 through the present here of Opening New Doors. The fifth position is Shono Hayama. And so really, they're typically in their early or late teens, I should say, to early 20s is about as old as they get. Anywhere from, again, like age 18 to 21. I think Kentaro was 21. And yeah, they've been in just various movies and music ventures. And so some of the movies here to reference here, Harumi Tosaka was a vocalist for the dance group Jaisal Brothers from Exile Tribe. And he is a singer and actor. And so Mochizuki is known for Solomon's Perjury in 2015. And here's another one. Here we go. Kami-sama no Wadachi in 2018.
These are some intense names.
Hey, everything in Japanese is intense sounding to me. So
yeah, I mean, like what was it? Solomon's Perjury? That's like some edge right there.
I know, dude. I know. Is it like a band? Yeah, is it like a legal drama or what? You know, so okay,
Exile Tribe. Like, damn.
Yeah, so Kentaro, he was on Lock on Love, Thicker Than Water, and Demikin. And Shono Hayama looks a little bit too much like Yudai for me to...
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's known for After the Rain, 4-season story, Japanese Girls Never Die, which is the best.
It's funny. When you mentioned his name, I couldn't really... I've seen all of Opening New Doors, and I couldn't put a face to the name. And then when you said he looks a little like Yudai, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yes, a little bit too much. Yeah, it only occurred to me when I was doing research for this.
And the people Jack is talking about, it's nice when they do speak up because they usually do a pretty good job in rooting. Like basically a lot of the romance that happens, they give the hot takes from a young perspective, which is I'm assuming while they're there. So and that's always interesting because sometimes you have situations where like Tokui and you, right, they have like this very like long and drawn out like explanation for why so and so thing happened, and then the younger guy's just like, nah, it's because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think they are there to give that, young male perspective. And that's oftentimes what's causing, conflict or excitement in the show is because it's like, what is that guy thinking?
Right.
But they don't always speak up in order to communicate, oh, this is what they're probably thinking. And I wonder if that's just because the dynamic between the rest of the regular hosts is always already so well established that they feel like maybe uncomfortable to intrude into that.
Right. And, I'll say that because of how quiet the fifth chair generally is, they're usually my least favorite person, of the panel, just because I always forget about them.
Uh-oh, ding, ding. Moshi, moshi.
You won the prize.
Whoops.
Yay.
Moshi, moshi.
Is that a hierarchy kind of thing?
I'm not
is
sure.
that a cultural kind of thing? Why they're quiet?
It could be a cultural thing, and I'm sure Daly will have more to say on this, but I think it's because he's younger that it's like a respect thing. He doesn't want to speak out of turn. Daly can...
I definitely think that's kind of the situation, because even I think all the younger folks on the panel don't speak up near as much as the older members, and part of that is because it's like you're kind of deferring to your elders, and simultaneously he's maybe not in the most comfortable of places. Everyone there has some comedy experience, or at least experience with each other, so it's harder to speak up.
Yeah, and with comedy comes improvisation, right, and analysis, and looking at the world kind of differently. Not so much a skill that you develop in idle singing.
Yeah. You can't just sing on the panel and get away with it.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe there would be a certain demographic that'd be looking for that, but not me.
Jack, why don't you take us home and tell us all about that last man on the panel?
Okay. Oh, man.
I love this guy.
Where do we go from here? And so this is the panel member that I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but I personally identify with this person the most. So Ryota Yamasoto, he's a comedian. He's got a YouTube channel Yama, and he's on the rightmost of the panel. So if you're looking at them, he's the guy all the way on the right on the floor with the glasses. He typically has some really poppin' fashion going on, some really loud shirts, collar shirts, and he don't give an F. And he's just there to watch the whole world burn, essentially. And he wants to introduce chaos, and just all he cares about is his own entertainment and making sure that it is high at all times and nothing boring happens, and at anyone's expense on the show. And so I hate to say it, but like he keeps things very interesting. And so I do identify with, like, you know, keeping the ball rolling, I guess, so to speak. So he's a comedian, he's a narrator and a radio personality. He's known for being a member of the comedy duo Nankai Candies with Shozuya Yamazaki, and they reference the Nankai Candies a lot, actually, on the show, as you'll see in the episodes. So he's also well known with the nickname Yama-chan. And so Yama-chan, he's also a graduate of the 22nd class, Osaka branch, school for new star creations. It's a school for comedians. So that's kind of like a thing, like, wait, they have a comedian school now? I didn't even realize that was a thing. Apparently, like, I thought you just kind of like grew up like with a messed up life and then became a comedian. I didn't know, like, you know what I mean? Like with a lot of pain and heartbreak, and like you're just a tortured soul, and so you just had comedy as your defense mechanism, and then you turn into a career.
Had to be Jewish to be a comedian.
Hey, some people think things. So
no,
I mean, so I get that though, right? Because like, I mean, yeah, sure, having a fucked up life really does help with comedy, but you need to be able to tell a story well, right? There's still a lot of skills that go into being a comedian.
Yeah, totally. I mean, no doubt. It just was interesting to me. I was like, wait, they have comedian schools. Okay. I mean, they have a school for everything. I just feel like maybe this is a stereotype, but when I tend to think about Japanese culture, I just tend to think of them as highly educated. So, of course, why would they not have a school for everything? Right? Why would they not have a course for that?
There's acting schools. There's a lot of people go to. There's like acting schools are really popular here. I would say that's kind of the equivalent, or the closest thing, rather. Yeah.
The last bullet point fact I had on Yama-chan is that he's known as an avid idol lover and supporter. He's often appeared as the MC of AKB48's program. So that's a Japanese idol group, and he's like kind of high on them. So like I said, though, he is kind of the Joker of the panel, where he just wants to introduce chaos at all turns, and he keeps things interesting, and he definitely adds a ton, maybe the most, to the comedy relief on the entire panel, for me anyways. I just really identify with him. So Daly, you said oh no when I said that. Can you extrapolate on that?
Because he does want to watch the world burn. He's there for the drama, which I'll admit sometimes I'm there for. But if there's something like happy, like with a very clear resolution happening, he's like, I want them off the show. I want them off the show.
He's like, yeah, they're boring. Just get them off the show. Why are they there?
I'll be honest though, I love it, because that's unfortunately kind of the reality of reality TV, right? Is that, like, I mean, I guess Daly, you don't know this because you haven't seen Boys and Girls in the City, but there's a time where a couple is like a couple and they're just still on the show for a long time, and I got so bored. Because they're like,
and it wasn't a good relationship either.
Well, that too, but I mean, it was just boring. Like, there was no drama to it. It's just kind of like, well, I guess they're happy, I guess. Cool.
Well,
they're happy, I guess.
Yeah. What was interesting about that relationship was that it was really weird. It was kind of like that movie Cube. I don't know if you guys ever seen that horror movie, but it's kind of like when they became a couple in the house, then this like algorithm opened up this secret locked door in the house, and they both go into it, and they just live in that room now that no one knew existed. Does that sound weird, Daly? I can see your face right now. But
I feel like I'm being punked right now.
No, I'm dead serious, right, guys?
Like, is this something that really happens?
Like they become a couple. Really now there's a couple. Like
there's just a room Zelda that no one told us about for the rest of the series,
and that's where they go and have their sexy time.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, this is a wholesome show. They don't sex, right?
What's a sex?
I mean,
episode 1, you're like, they bang. Come on,
that Robert. I know from Opening New Doors. They do.
So look forward to that daily.
Yeah,
I guess.
But I on the subject of Yama, he definitely has the hot takes. He's almost always playing devil's advocate, and I mean, what he always says some crazy ass like out there shit a lot of the times.
I mean, one of the best quotes for me is just basically when, again, Tori-chan is gone on business, as she is wont to do, and they start getting really raunchy. And like it even becomes too much. And Yama-chan is like one of the primary drivers of the raunchy discussion and discourse. And even it gets a little bit too raw for him. So he just proceeds to scream, Tori-chan, like, help us.
Tori-chan,
we're losing it. And like when I think of him, I just think of him screaming, Tori-chan.
Yeah. And he's also really great at playing with Tokui. Like I think of the scene. Yeah. This is especially recent in Opening New Doors with Shohei calling the church, and just the exchange between Tokui and Yama. Just like, yeah, hi, I'd like to reserve a church. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, we don't care.
Nobody cares. It's a public domain.
We don't have a package for this. Yeah, well, literally another part that I was almost down to tears, laughing so hard.
Yeah, like Yama has some of the best parts, and while he can maybe be seen as like a negative downer, I think that he adds like a good voice to the show that the others don't. Like he's definitely a unique person. Like I don't think Terrace House would be the same if he were replaced by someone else.
I couldn't imagine the show without him. Yeah. He's one of those pillars, right? Fifth chair, come and go, okay, fair enough. But I think Yama-chan absolutely is one of the staples on the show that if he was gone, I don't know where my interest level would be. So yeah, I agree totally with what you said.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's something to be said too. Like I think for the most part, the producers of Terrace House have done a hell of a job, like balancing out this cast of hosts for this show. You know what I mean? I feel like it's just really well balanced. Like you basically get generally most of the perspectives you would want out of a commentary. You know what I mean? You get the devil's advocate, you get the guy that's riffing on it, you get the Babazono who's given the hot takes every once in a great while, adds a stinger on there, and then you get the pure one, and then I mean you just get so many awesome perspectives from it that I think it really adds to a lot of dimension to the show.
Babazono for me, I didn't get a chance to talk about this when we were bringing her up originally, but she kind of serves as like a platform for which Tokui exacts like weird comedic interactions with. Like she's like the straight man and Tokui's like the goofball, and he's like punching her or jabbing her and seeing her react to him together. So I think they work really well together as a duo.
And that might
and I think that comes from them knowing each other for so long.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a big brother, or little sister kind of thing,
right?
Or vice versa.
I want to end the show with one final question around the table. We've talked about all 6 of the hosts. Well, I guess 5 plus 4. Which one is your favorite? And I'm going to start with Daly.
Oh man, I got it. That's hard. That's like picking your favorite child, which I can easily do. It's you.
Hey, thank you.
It's me.
It's me.
Yeah.
No, it's you. No, you is again. Also, like she's just like such a balanced take, but at the same time, she says the kind of like snide comments that I feel like I want out of the show, because everyone wants to be pretty optimistic about things, but sometimes she'll be like, oh no, he's only thinking with his downstairs brain, or like even like kind of raunchy stuff like that. And it kind of surprised me at first, because I was like, I thought this show was like going to be entirely pure and they're just talking about feelings. No, we're going to get real. And I feel you is the one that will be the first to get real about what people are actually thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm. Jack, who's your favorite?
Like I said, man, it's got to be Yama-chan. He adds a lot of spice to the conversation, and he just makes me laugh. And so even it's kind of like he's the villain too on the panel, and so he's the victim or the receiving end of a lot of Tori-chan's side eye, like we were discussing earlier. So seeing the dichotomy of Tori-chan's innocence and Yama-chan's cynicism, I guess is the best way to describe it, is a really good interaction for me. So he to me is the one I identify with the most. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I love that guy.
Yeah, Colin,
and good glasses, by the way, good frames.
Yeah, it kind of looks similar to your glasses, I think, now that I think about it. You have similar glasses? I think you do. Anyway, my favorite is probably Tokui, because I think a lot like you, he is kind of balanced. He's not afraid to talk about what's happening emotionally in the show, right? He's like, yeah, this is just like my summers of youth and blah, blah, blah. And then he reminisces his old past and is very nostalgic. But at the same time, he's not afraid to like crack a lot of jokes. And then like 1 minute he could be talking about being all serious about feelings, and the next minute he's talking all about boobs.
Yep.
Like he
All
just gets
about
ridiculous.
boobs.
Yeah, oppai. But yeah, I just think that he's just really fun on the show, and he does a lot of awesome improv parts, especially with like Yama and you.
Yeah. My favorite is all of them. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I do like all of
it's
them.
like, boo. Boo this man.
But actually, I really like the dynamic that Tori-chan brings to the show. Because, I mean, she doesn't really say many things that are like, oh, that's memorable. That's a good zing, right? But she like, just by her presence, right? She creates this atmosphere where it kind of permeates through the whole discussion. Like, even when, you know, you and Yama and Tokui go on crazy, like, boobs and dicks, am I right? Like, they still always come around to, oh, but we shouldn't. We should stop. We're spoiling the innocent child.
We're sullying Tori-chan's.
Right. And she always has that look of just like blushing super hard and kind of like, I'm so uncomfortable, you know, and it's like
Covering her mouth, smiling.
yeah. And so it's like, even when she doesn't say anything, she's always still there being extremely present, which that's hard to do, right? It's hard to be a personality without saying a lot. But
The entire panel pays. The entire panel pays a lot of attention to her reaction. Yes. I feel like everyone's very concerned with Tori-chan in the room when she's there. It's funny.
Right. I think that does it for us on this episode of Tadaima. Now you know a lot more about the hosts, and now those 5-minute segments when they talk, you've got a little bit more, in depth, a little more understanding of the people behind the voices. If you enjoyed this episode of Tadaima, please feel free to review us on iTunes. It helps out a lot. We have launched just today. Be excited because on Thursday this week, we're going to be publishing a pretty quick recap of parts 1 through 3 of Opening New Doors. And we're gearing up for part 5, ladies and gentlemen. Opening New Doors part 5 is dropping on Netflix very soon, December 18. Get excited because we are.
Yes.
Woo. This has been Tadaima. Thanks for listening. Itadakimasu.
You can email us at questions@terracehousepodcast.com, follow us on Instagram at Tadaimagram, on Twitter at TadaimaPod, and check us out on Facebook and YouTube at Tadaima, a Terrace House podcast.